Under the Bridge, episode 6, In the Water They Sink as the Same, was shocking and crazy and revealing, and I can't wait to get into it. Welcome to the channel. If you haven't, press play on Under the Bridge on Hulu. I highly recommend it. It's such a good show. It's based on a true story. It's so well done. It's true crime, but they cover a lot of really interesting topics, really interesting themes, like that of racism, especially in this episode, classism. Man, it screams classism and grief and trauma. I can't wait to get into this because there is so much jam packed into this episode. So, if you haven't watched the latest episode, consider this your warning. Spoilers ahead. We're going to get into it right now. Okay, so the episode opens up and it's 1982. So there's the flashback. This time, the flashback is with Cam, Rebecca, and Gabe and their dynamic. We get to see that. It's very telling. Rebecca has, you can tell she has feelings for Cam, but Gabe has feelings for Cam, and Cam is probably a little confused. So that's the dynamic that I noticed between these three. And Rebecca is horrible to her brother. It just so happens to be the day that he falls into the ocean and drowns. I thought it was interesting how we kind of started here, which hinted to me as a viewer that we were going to get into some more stuff with Rebecca in this episode. Obviously the detectives, the cops, they're trying to find Warren. There's a question that is posed to Cam in this episode, and it's the question of, where are you from? Where are you really from? Cam can't answer that. She's adopted. She doesn't really know. So there's this identity thing with her. It kind of reminds me of True Detective Night Country when Navarro was confronted with who she is, not what she is. And her whole story arc was about, well, there was a lot of things about her story arc, but in the end she found out what her name is and what it means, and it was everything that she ever wanted from her mom. It was a beautiful actually scene, and I find it the parallels here. I can't help but notice the same thing with Cam and who she is and where she's from, and her not knowing because she was adopted. And maybe at the end of this story she goes out and she kind of tries to find out who she is, because who you are and where you come from is everything. And when you don't know that, there's a void that's created. And so we see that with Cam. We see that with Cam throughout the entire series, really. Her relationship with her dad, her relationship with her brother, even her relationship with Rebecca. She just doesn't know who she is and where she came from. And she is kind of living her life trying to find that. And, her wanting to transfer is really her wanting to find out who she is. That's her story arc right there. And so now with Rebecca is stuck in this trauma when she was 13 years old. I mean, and she almost, I'm not saying she acts like she's 13, but there's a lot of things that Rebecca does in this series that make me question, obviously, her decisions and her choices. And a lot of that is driven by guilt. A lot of that is driven by this sense of responsibility for her brother's death. And the way that this episode opens with how Rebecca treated her brother uh, just hours before he died. It's just so heartbreaking, and it made me see her really for see her what's really going on with her. And I think I hinted to this in the last video that I did for the last episode. Rebecca is certainly making up for how she, I didn't know that she treated her brother terribly before he died, but it's so clear that now that we see that scene, that she is seeing Warren as sort of a second chance, as sort of her, like a redo, you know, making up for what she did with her brother and how she treated her brother and that relationship, and the guilt she feels, and how she too wants to drown, and I feel like in this episode we see that with her, and it clouds her judgment, what's right, and what's wrong, and so we see that with her, and it's kind of, it's so crazy. In the episode, we see Rebecca finds Warren something to wear for the dance, and she gives him her brother's suit, and it's the same suit that her brother was trying to put together for the dance. Even asked Rebecca for help, and Rebecca wouldn't help him. And in present time, you see Rebecca helping Warren with a suit. So it's almost, it's, we talk about full circle. This is what's happening here. Cam obviously wants to bring Warren in. Rebecca thinks it's a bad idea because he's a boy and has nothing, and Kelly has support and money and family, and so that right there screams classism, and it's begging for us to take notice. And honestly, in a lot of ways, Rebecca isn't wrong. But then we find out that it seems as though he might have left some things out. The chief of police and Cam are at the dance, and they're looking for Warren and the girls. They don't find neither of them there. But they spot Warren's girlfriend, and they start to question her, and this is where Samara said that they dragged her into the water. Keyword there is they, not Kelly, they. So the cops, they obviously go to Kelly's house, and they find Reena's boots. They find the physical evidence. Rebecca meets with Cam, and in the conversation that Rebecca has with Cam, she leaves out the fact that Warren has been hiding out at her parents' house. So this puts a rift between Cam and Rebecca. And so we see that it's, you know, Rebecca feels like she needs to protect Warren. Cam feels like she needs to bring justice to Reena Virk and get the people, arrest the people that did this to her. Another riff we see that happens in this episode is the one between Joe and Kelly. These two, in the last episode, if you remember, it's hinted that they need to get rid of Dusty because she knows too much and she's feeling all kinds of guilt. And instead of the girls going to the dance, they go to the trip there. It's hinted that Kelly puts rat poisoning inside of a drink, hand it over to Dusty, and Dusty kind of spits it out. And so then they go to the train. Both Kelly and Joe convince Dusty to basically kill herself, and Joe at the last minute pulls Dusty off the tracks. And of course, Kelly is upset by that. And now there's a rift between Joe and Kelly. Two relationships here suffer some sort of a rift in this episode, and it's so intense, guys. This episode was just, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, listen, the way that the creators are able to drag this story out in 8 episodes by creating so much tension and intrigue and suspense, just enough to keep us on the hook throughout, even though they kind of drop a really major plot point by episode 3. I'm thinking, wow, you have 4 episodes. How are you going to drag this thing out? I've never seen a show, like a crime show like this, reveal who the killer is so early and be able to carry out such an incredibly tense, intriguing, captivating story up to now. And we have 2 more episodes to go. And I can't even believe we have 2 more episodes to go. This story is so sad and so crazy and messed up. I feel so sad for Sumna, who knows that Kelly did it. There was a scene in this episode where they run into each other at the grocery store, and Kelly is just pure evil. And Kelly has the audacity to say to Reena's mom that she wishes she was there when Reena got killed to help her. How can you even say that? Wow, it's just crazy. It's so tragic all around. really. That is the recap. This episode was so jam-packed. Let me know your thoughts, especially when it comes to Rebecca and Cam and their relationship and their riff and their arc. That is my recap and breakdown of this episode. A lot has been revealed in this episode, and so we're in for a ride. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Please, leave me your comments. Stream Under the Bridge on Hulu right now, and we'll talk to you later.